Alright, hey guys, welcome back. We're back in Guardians of Ember. This is some footage of me running the Chaos Temple on level 2, which is the current hard mode. So it's the hardest difficulty that's currently in the game. About a little over a week ago, we had a Q&A session come up with Runewaker, which is the developer for the game. Now, Insel Games is the publisher. Runewaker are the guys who are actually working on the game. So basically, Insel went to their studios and was able to ask them some of the questions that we as the players have been asking and wanting answers to. So basically, I'm just going to kind of go over those, give you my thoughts, my opinions on those. So the first question that came up was the big one that all of us have been asking, and that's, what about in-game content? So what is that in-game content that we're looking for? And of course, the answer was it's going to consist of getting new gear, which, I mean, we already knew that. It's an action RPG. That's an action RPG, is the gear grind. Of course, they said they were going to look at adding a hardcore mode. Not really sure what their idea on a hardcore mode is. And of course, they still have horde mode on there, but I mean, honestly, at this point, is it even going to come out? Horde mode has been pushed back 2 or 3 months now. Every time it's about to come out, there's some issue with it, and they have to push it back another month. So I'm kind of on horde mode. I'm honestly about to just give up on it and say it's not ever probably going to make it into the game. They've also discussed adding a new act, which, from what I understand, from what I've been able to gather from achievements and quests and things that are already in the game, that content is pretty much already done. They just have it locked because I already have the quest. This quest up here in the top right corner is the quest to go to the new zone. The achievements, some of the achievements for that the new act are already in the game. So that stuff already seems to be implemented. They just don't have it unlocked for us yet. The other thing they were talking about was the endless tower. And again, on this one, we'll see. I'm kind of hoping it doesn't play out like horde mode, where they just keep pushing it back and pushing it back. So that's their goals for in-game. The next big question was about PvP. So they wanted to know, we as a community wanted to know, are there going to be bigger PvP areas, or maybe even PvP servers? They did say that they were going to look at adding some ranked PvP, but they didn't have any plans to add more PvP areas or even PvP servers, because the majority of us that play the game do prefer the PvE content like this dungeon here. So that's what the majority of us prefer, so that seems to be what their focus is going to be on. And I would agree with that. I'm not a big PvP type of guy. I don't like a lot of PvP. I will play PvP if it's required for some type of progression, but I would prefer to just farm items or run dungeons with groups, is actually what I would prefer to do. So the next one was, will there be something like guild domination or guild wars, which again is on the PvP aspect of things. So they said that there are no plans for anything like that. So no guild battles or anything coming down the pipelines. They did, however, say that they are planning to add more guild features, which is something a lot of us have been wanting, because currently there's really no reason for guilds. I mean, the player base is so small. Honestly, some people have even asked them to just do away with guilds. And at this point, honestly, I would probably be fine with that if they just kind of did away with guilds. And if they did go that route, I would like for them to do like maybe a server guild or some kind of feature where you can see all of the players online currently. So I know a lot of I've seen it in some MMOs. When you first log into the game, they kind of put you in a like a noob guild, you're a new player, so you go into a guild. It's a beginner guild, and everybody starts out in that guild. I think a feature like that, especially right now while it's in early access and the player base is small, I think that's something that could really help out the players, create more of a sense of community, so we can chat with guildmates and do things. Currently, you have to ask in general chat, and a lot of people just don't watch the general chat. The next question that came up was about healer builds. So currently, the way experience is distributed, from what I understand in groups, I've done very little group play. I do most of my farming solo. But the way experience is distributed, if you have a character that primarily heals, they aren't getting as much experience as, say, a tank type character or a damage character, because they're not doing as much damage to the monsters. And that's apparently, the experience is distributed based on how much damage you do to the enemy. So they have said that they're looking at reworking how healer XP is distributed. They've actually said that's in an upcoming patch. The next one was, will there be more co-op content and crafting at earlier levels? This is already in the works. They've already said they're moving crafting down to level 15. PvP will start at lower levels as well. And horde mode, if it actually makes it into the game at some point, will be available at lower levels. So they're bringing some of that end game, or that mid-level content, down to lower level characters, because a lot of players are running out of things to do. The questing is kind of tedious, so you're kind of stuck with a lot of items that you just end up selling when you could be breaking them down and getting crafting mats. Even if they didn't want to bring crafting down to that low of level, at least let you start breaking your items down. Don't waste those items. If you watch me running my dungeon here, I just pick up the blues and purples. A lot of the greens and the whites I overlook, because I don't need, most of my armor is all +6 or +5. I don't need that crafting mats or the upgrade materials. So again, crafting, PvP, and horde mode, if it actually make it, will be available at lower levels. The next one was balance changes. A lot of players feel like there's only certain builds that are viable, and I can agree with that. I can see that. Certain passives feel less than important. I know on my Dark Knight here, there's only 3 or 4 passives I actually run. Out of all the passives they have, the others just, to me, don't serve a purpose. They don't accomplish anything. And again, this could change if they fix the content where tank and healer is required. Just like on my Dark Knight, I have some tank abilities, some tank passives. I never use them because there's no point in having a tank. Right now it's easier to just burn the mobs down, just focus on all-out defense, and burst them down. But again, if they do the tank and healer changes and add a difficulty in and start focusing more on group content, then I have a feeling there will become a lot more viable builds, and a lot of different builds will start to pop up, because you'll be able to experiment a little bit more with different things instead of having to stick with what works. So the next one was, will there be changes to the housing system? And not only decorative items, but some extra usable items. So they've already said that they're working on more housing features. So they plan on adding more useful housing features, but they don't want to give certain players more of an advantage over other players. So they don't want to give a player who focuses, more on just the housing stuff, or if, and I know this is what pops up, if they added housing items to the item shop. They don't want that to become a feature where people could pay for housing items and then get a bonus to their character from those housing items. But they have said that they are planning to add more features to the house. The next one was someone asked about elite skills. I never played much Runes of Magic. I have played Guild Wars, so I would assume it's kind of like that, where you have, you know, maybe an elite skill and you're only allowed to have one of them on your toolbar at a time. So currently they said they have no plans to add elite skills, but they are planning on adding additional skills to the system. So maybe, hopefully, as our levels increase, we get more skills. Another question with that was the skill slots. Skill slot 5 and 6 there is still locked. So they have said they plan to start unlocking those as soon as possible. I have a feeling maybe skill slot 5 will probably unlock in the next act, whenever the next act finally drops. And then skill set 6 or slot 6 will probably drop in the act after that, if there is another act. And then of course the final one was on an auction house. Will there be an auction house? They said right now they don't want to add one right now. And again, I think that has a lot to do with the player base. There's not enough players in the game, I don't think, to justify an auction house. But they have said they are seriously considering the auction house for a later date. So that was some of the big questions that the community had for them, for Runewaker. And the biggest ones for me personally was the end game content. You know, I've pretty much ran out of stuff to do. I have this one dungeon here to run. I've ran it I don't know how many hundreds of times. I basically log in now once or twice a day, just to get my daily bonuses. And when I log in, I'll see if somebody needs some help running something. If there's anybody on, usually the guilds is pretty dead. I usually have a couple people on my friends list, but overall the game is still enjoyable to play. It's still a fun game to play. I just feel like they need to start adding more features. They keep saying that there's a lot of bugs. Honestly, I don't run into too many bugs. I know the big one right now has something to do with the slums, which is one of the levels just outside the city. Again, I'm past that, so I don't really have any issues with that. Apparently it applies to lower level characters, so if you're trying to level characters, I think it was you're getting stuck. You get stuck in the zone. That's what it was. You get stuck in the zone, and it's causing crashes to desktop. So that they should have that fixed here shortly. Usually those crashes to desktops, when those pop up, they get those fixed fairly quickly. But I do wish they would sort of get on the ball and add some more content, which is why I've started venturing out into other games. You know, I've played Wilson. I really enjoy that one, and a few others. And again, if you guys have any suggestions for any good RPG games to play, I'm more than open to suggestions. I'm gonna cut the video off here. That's just kind of my thoughts and going over the Q&A with the developers for Runewaker and what their vision for the game is. I know I've already went over their updated roadmap, and the questions kind of just tied in with the roadmap. So of course, as always guys, like, comment, and subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later.